Hey friends, welcome back to our class notes episode number 36. This week we will just focus on the physical structure behind the Tuo Qiang Shi Posture in our Zhang circle walking practice. Okay, you see it in this video. This is the posture, and in this week's Tuesday class we started to talk a little bit more about the actual underlying cues that we would use when walking or practicing this posture. So in order to make things a little bit clearer, I put a glass bottle on the floor in order to demonstrate that this is the center of our circle. And just as if we would be walking with our normal single palm change posture, the secondary hand when you walk with Tuo Qiang Shi should always be pointing towards the center of your circle. Okay, so you hold your hand palm facing upward in such a way that your index finger is always pointing towards the center of your circle, which in this case is symbolized by the bottle on the floor. Okay, there is always a tiny or an external rotation in your hand, and there's always also a movement which looks like this, so a tilt of the hand towards the center. We will see that a little bit closer and more detailed in the end, towards the end of the video, but for now this is what the secondary hand is doing. So index finger pointing towards the center of your circle with palm facing upward. Okay, so that's the basic structure of the lower hand, and then we take a look at the second hand, which will be lifted up next to your head. And in order to demonstrate more clearly how we would arrange the hands in connection to each other, I use two balls here. So you could think of this hand here as holding up the ball like so. Remember that Tuo Qiang Shi means uplifting spare posture. You could also think of holding a spear in this hand, which would be leaning on or lying in your hand. Okay, so I like balls here because it makes it a little bit more clear how you should turn and arrange your palm. Okay, so this is the structure of your secondary hand. Again, index finger pointing towards the center, palm lifting upward. Okay, so you have this motion towards through the external rotation and this little tilt in your wrist. You are always reconnecting to the center of the circle, and this is how you start walking, always rearranging and always adjusting your body through that little motion in your wrist. Okay, so that's the first hand, the lower hand. Right. Now we use the second ball and we put it into the other arm or the other hand of our, in this case, training partner here. We need to lift up the second arm here. We want to extend our elbow joint more than 90 degrees, and we want to have our hand in a solid distance from our own forehead. Okay, this is important when people get tired. Usually this angle here tends to get much smaller, and if they really fall asleep during the exercise, sometimes you see stuff like that. It's almost falling asleep. Of course, we do not want this, right? So we keep the angle slightly bigger than 90 degrees in the elbow joint, and we want to arrange our palm of the second hand in such a way that the palm is pointing towards the ball in front of our lower hand. And so I'm arranging that here, and I'm also putting the second ball into this palm, which should be open, and all the fingers spread. So it's a big palm that we have, and now she's holding two balls. One is lifted, and the other one, or the other hand, you see it here, is arranged or turned in such a way that if this ball would be a big ball, like so, her second hand would push the ball from this side here. This hand is lifting, this one is pushing. All right, so unfortunately I didn't have a big balloon in the gym. Otherwise I would have put the big balloon in her hand like so. Okay, so that would be the circle here. So one hand is lifting, the other one is pushing the ball, right? So this is the arrangement of your palms. And it's actually quite a nice practice, and it also keeps you from relaxing your hand too much and losing the focus through this relaxation. So you always want to spread your fingers. You want to have a solid amount of tension there. Of course, not too much, but also not too little. Just stretch them out and arrange your hands in such a way that the lower hand is lifting and the upper hand is pushing towards the lower hand here. Okay, remember the super important angle in your arm and the turn in your hand here, so the palm is facing this direction, and also remember the distance, the proper distance between your hand here and your forehead. Right, so this is important. And now we take a look at the back, and this is the another critical part here of this posture, and this is about how we arrange our shoulders in order to support this structure. And really the full support is achieved through the opening of the shoulder blades again, right? So we want to open the shoulder blades to both sides, like left one moving into this direction, right one moving into this direction. So through this opening, the extension of your upper back, we get a solid and strong structure in our shoulder girdle. Okay, so open this part here, that's how I demonstrate it. And if you would push from both hands, you would push out from the opening of your shoulder blades into your arm. So if I push into her arm here, from this side, she can counter that through opening her shoulder blade into this direction, creating a strong alignment from Mingmen down here, through the opening of the shoulder blades and then down into her fingertips. And the same happens on the other side. I press into this arm in this frame here, and again she's countering this force through opening her shoulder blade into this direction and upward. Okay, so these are the main positional cues that we want to maintain throughout the exercise where we walk the circle. And again, this time we increased the duration of our circle walking while holding this posture, and we went for 2 minutes and 30 seconds and changing the direction 4 times on Tuesday, and we will add another 2, so 6 times on Thursday this week. So if you practice along with us from an unknown place somewhere in the world, then you might join us by walking this posture for 6 rounds of 2 minutes 30 each. Okay, and finally, the last, there was a nice question, what the lower hand is actually doing, why we always tilt the hand to this side. It's kind of enforcing your continuous recalibration of your body towards the center of the circle. So when we walk the circle with the regular single palm change hand posture, what usually happens, and I demonstrate this in a very exaggerated way, when you step with the outer foot, the tension gets resolved for this step. So when I step with the outer foot here, my upper body tends to open towards the front. When I step with the inside foot again, so with this, in this case it's the left foot, I rearrange and twist into or towards the center of the circle again. So you have a closing motion towards the center, and with your next step you open, you close, you open, you close, you open. So there is a constant recalibration and constant turn towards the center, which creates a very specific body and in turn body work in your Bagua Zhang circle walking practice. So while with the regular posture, it always happens like so, that when I step with the outside leg, my body opens and it moves towards the front. Then when I step with the inside foot, I have to turn towards the center again. So here I'm now demonstrating this in a very exaggerated way. So usually Of course, I don't walk like that, right? But it's this idea, twist back, open, twist back, open. And in the Tuo Qiang Shi Posture, it's the same thing actually happening, but you cue yourself into that rotation through that little tilt in your wrist. Let's see how I demonstrate this. So you always have this recalibration in your hand here, and you're also always turning back towards the center, so you have that constant opening and closing motion of your body, right? So that's the idea here. Well, that's a few cues for now to keep practicing the Tuo Qiang Shi. That's enough material to practice this posture for quite some time, and you know that the magic in practicing these postures usually is the continuous practice. Okay, so you basically what you want is to never stop practicing those postures, because they change along your own physical changes. Like, for example, you're growing older. Okay, so when I practiced this 5 years ago, this structure felt different from the way that it feels right now, and if I keep practicing it and focusing on it again, you will feel that each day basically feels a little different. So it's again a nice method of checking in with your body and understanding your own physical alignment and how you would need to change and readjust the structure of your body from on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so it's super interesting internal work. I highly recommend to do this regularly, changing through the postures of, let's say, Zhang, like every 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then pick the next exercise again and go for it. Okay, so you can do that in a circle, so you can basically practice this throughout your whole life, and it will always be a little different than you've practiced it before. So I hope you enjoyed this class notes episode. Next week we will focus entirely on the application of Chui Shou Zhang, the first movement of our second line. I already filmed the material, but now I just have to edit it and present it to you in a coherent fashion. Okay, so have a nice day and speak soon.